The Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley, Bridges, Buckner, Coleman, Cutter, Danielson, Exum, Fields, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hansen, Hinrichsen, Jaquez Lewis, Kirkmeyer, Kolker, Liston, Lundeen, Marchman,
Excused.
Moreno,
I loved it so much. Good hearing it. Thank you.
Moreno, Leprechaun, Pelton B, Pelton R, Priola, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Smallwood, Sullivan, Van Winkle, Will, Winter, Zenzinger, Mr. President.
Here. The morning roll call is 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused. We do have a quorum. Will the good senator from Denver please lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, guests, staff, and Dan Pabon, please join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Kolker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate Journal of Thursday, March 16, 2023 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. Senate Services.
March 17, 2023, correctly printed Senate Bill 191, 192, 193, 194, 195, 196, and 197. Correctly revised House Bills 1001, 1030, 1037, 1137, 1156, and 1172. Correctly re-revised House Bill 1011. Correctly enrolled Senate Joint Resolution 7.
Committee reports.
March 16, 2023, the Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 20 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Finance with favorable recommendations. House Bill 1117 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. March 17, 2023, the Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 6 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 18 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, and with a recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar. Senate Bill 39 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 67 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 69 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 72 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 149 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 151 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 165 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, and with a recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar. Senate Bill 182 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, and with a recommendation to be placed on the consent calendar. Senate Bill 189 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. March 16, 2023, the Committee on State, Veterans, and Military Affairs, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1219 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. March 16, 2023, Mr. President, the Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be placed on the consent calendar. Confirm members of the Health Insurance Affordability Enterprise Board for terms terms expiring September 24th, 2026. Shannon Groves of Denver, Colorado, a representative employed by a carrier, reappointed Stephanie Einfeld of Steamboat Springs, Colorado, to serve as a representative primary health care providers who does not represent a carrier, reappointed Richard Chimino of Fraser, Colorado, to serve as a representative of consumers of healthcare who are not employees of a hospital or other healthcare industry entities, reappointed Carla Gonzalez Garcia, Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative of consumers of healthcare who are not employees of a hospital or other healthcare industry entities, appointed Samuel Todd Young of Grand Junction, Colorado, to serve as a representative of a business that purchases or otherwise provides health insurance for its employees, reappointed March 16, 2023. Mr. President, the Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirm members of the Solid and Hazardous Waste Commission for terms expiring August 1st, 2025. Matthew Crisp of Sterling, Colorado, to serve as a representative of local government and as an unaffiliated, reappointed Emily McConnell Freeman of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative of the public and as a Democrat, reappointed Ryan Kyle of Clifton, Colorado, to serve as a representative of local government and as an unaffiliated, appointed March 2nd, 2023. Mr. President, the Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be placed on the consent calendar and confirm member of the Medical Services Board for a term expiring July 1st, 2026, Laura Carroll of Delta, Colorado, to serve as a resident of the 3rd Congressional District, a Democrat with knowledge of medical assistance program, appointed March 16, 2023. The Committee on Local Government and Housing, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 166 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. March 16, 2023, the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. House Bill 1179 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation with a recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar. After consideration on the merits, and Senate Bill 59 be amended as follows, and as so amended be referred to the Committee on Finance with favorable recommendation.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate proceed out of order for consideration of memorials.
The motion is to proceed out of order for the consideration of memorials. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. We will now proceed out of order. Consideration of memorials. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Joint Memorial 3?
Senate Joint Memorial 3 by Senator Gonzalez and Representatives Gonzalez Gutierrez, memorializing former Representative and Senator Dennis Gallagher.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 3 and request that it be read at length.
Will the clerk please read Senate Joint Memorial 3 at length?
Senate Joint Memorial 3 by Senator Gonzalez and Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez, memorializing former Representative and Senator Dennis Gallagher. Whereas the Honorable Dennis Joseph Patrick Gallagher departed this life on April 22nd, 2022, at the age of 82. And whereas the Honorable Gallagher was a beloved past member of the Colorado House of Representatives from 1970 to 1974, and the Colorado Senate from 1974 to 1995, served on the Denver City Council from 1995 to 2003, and was elected as auditor for the City and County of Denver, serving from 2003 until 2015. And whereas former Senator Gallagher was born in 1939 in Denver, Colorado, to first-generation Irish-American mother and father Nellie Flaherty and William Gallagher, Jr., and attended Holy Family High School in North Denver. And whereas former Senator Gallagher's life was transformed by the Sisters of Loretto at Holy Family High School in North Denver, whose coaching led him to achieve the distinction of national runner-up in the Voice of Democracy oratorial contest. And whereas Senator Gallagher went on to a Catholic university in Washington, D.C. on a J.K. Mullen Scholarship, where he received graduate degrees in speech, linguistics, and comparative philology, and wrote a thesis on a 1399 Cornish medieval miracle play. And whereas it was during his time in Washington that former Senator Gallagher worked on campaigns for John F. Kennedy and, quote, felt the warmth of John F. Kennedy's torch, unquote. And whereas former Senator Gallagher was an important figure in the Irish community in Denver, hosting a well-known St. Patrick's Day celebration, as well as co-authoring the book Irish Denver, Images of America, with his friends Tom Noel and James Patrick Walsh. And whereas former Senator Gallagher was perhaps best known for the amendment named after him, the Gallagher Amendment, which passed the legislature in 1982 and was intended to lower residential property taxes. And whereas former Senator Gallagher worked with Mayor John Hickenlooper, who he helped get his start in politics, to spearhead the complete reformation of the Denver Auditor's Office, which expanded the purview of the office and allowed for performance-based audits. And whereas Senator Gallagher was a devoted public servant who worked well with everyone around him, and who was known by his constituents to be an approachable and visible legislator who could be seen walking his districts and stopping to talk with whomever he ran into, introducing himself. He impressed foreign visitors by greeting them in their native language, amazingly, in 23 different languages. He also astonished tourists and locals by bursting into the Colorado state song, A.J. Flynn's Where the Columbines Grow, and always reminded people, you have to ask for the vote. And whereas former Senator Gallagher was known for his personal motto, which was Athenian in origin and came from his love of the classics, quote, leave the city a better place than you found it, unquote. And as Tom Noel's heartfelt tribute to him said, quote, with Dennis gone, who will enlighten city council and legislative journals with quotations from poets such as William Shakespeare and Gerard Manley Hopkins? Dennis was a hopeless bibliophile who never passed up a book sale or a library. Every book is a sacred obligation, he loved to say. Not only the people of Denver, but thousands of students at Regis University, where Dennis taught speech, persuasion, and media for almost 50 years, will miss him. He especially loved the summer classes he took to Ireland. To those who think no politician can be honest, Dennis Gallagher was the answer, unquote. And whereas it is fitting that we, the members of the 74th General Assembly, pay tribute to the dedicated service of Dennis Joseph Patrick Gallagher and express our deep regret and sorrow occasioned by his death, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 74th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that in the death of the Honorable Dennis Joseph Patrick Gallagher, the people of Colorado have lost a dedicated public servant and outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the 74th General Assembly, do hereby extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family and pay tribute to a man who served his state well and faithfully. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint memorial be sent to Danny Gallagher, his son, and Tim Gallagher, his brother.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, please be seated. They simply don't make them like Dennis Gallagher anymore. What an honor and a joy to be able to be visited today by so many friends and family, by so many former colleagues. Dennis Gallagher was an institution in Denver politics and in Colorado politics. I hope that this institution carries on his legacy, because Lord knows, we need more Shakespeare and fewer limericks. But being able to find common ground, even in the midst of deep dispute, deep crisis, being able to come together, whether it's across a love of learning, whether or not it's across a specific policy, whether or not it's around love of Ireland and culture, whether or not it's across love of this city. They just don't make them like Dennis Gallagher anymore. I want to acknowledge Danny Gallagher, his son. If you'd please stand. Tim Gallagher and his wife, Sherry Peterson Gallagher. Richard and Colleen Clem. I'd also like to acknowledge Joanne Gallagher, his former wife. also like to acknowledge his friends of the family, Mark Barnhouse, Jim Kroll, Dr. Tom Knoll, also known as Dr. Colorado, Gary Sully, Clay Vigoda, Paul McLaughlin, Sister Mary Nell Gage, and Kate Springs. Thank you all for joining us here today. I want to start off by acknowledging you, because we'll be hearing beautiful stories from his former colleagues and from those of us here in this chamber as well. But colleagues, please, let's begin by giving them a round of applause.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I first met Dennis Gallagher around 2006, and I'm an Adams County Democrat, and he always came to our St. Patrick's Day celebration. So I was young, and I was wanting to do something in politics, and I was talking to folks about what I needed to do. And they were like, you have to make corned beef for the St. Patrick's Day celebration. And I thought, I've never made corned beef in my life. I am a little bit Irish, but I never made corned beef. So I did all the research. I looked at all the recipes. They're like, and you need to win over Dennis Gallagher. I was like, okay, here we go. First, Adams County St. Patrick's Day celebration. I have 2 jobs. I'm gonna make corned beef, and I'm gonna win over Dennis Gallagher. And he always came to the Adams County St. Patrick's Day celebration, even though he had his own great party in Denver. And I don't know if I'm giving away a secret, but he always said he wishes he was an Adams County Democrat when he came to our parties. And so I'm here, and I'm 26, and I have corned beef. I'm like, hi, I'm Faith. And talked to him about who I was, and he tried my corned beef, and he's like, you're gonna go places. I approve of your corned beef. And, and that's when I knew that I could make it in Adams County politics, because Dennis Gallagher approved of my corned beef. And fast forward to today, I sit in desk number 13, which Dennis Gallagher sat in for 20 years. So I have a big seat to fill every single day because of the heart and the compassion and all the energy he gave to this office. He woke up every single day with so much joy in serving the people, and I knew immediately from the first time I met him and throughout his life that I wanted to have that joy and that passion for serving people. And then today, I found out even more about him through Danny Gallagher, which makes me feel even more connected. So Danny was talking about how he would come here as a child while his dad sat in desk number 13. And you all have seen my children come here and run this building. They get all the lobbyists to buy them candy and cookies in the basement and go to the cafeteria and run up to the dome and talk to all the sergeants. And hearing the stories that Danny shared today about his childhood and how that brought him here today, sharing that with his dad. And so may we all be more like Dennis Gallagher, filled with joy and compassion and love of corned beef.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I first got to know Senator Gallagher as a student at Regis University. I grew up on the western slope, so I had no idea that he was a big deal. And I, just in full confession, I'm kind of a night person and I hate mornings, and I really did not want to take an 8 o'clock communications class. So I scanned the booklet to find my required communications class, and I found a 6 p.m. class. in the evening with Senator Dennis Gallagher. And I thought, yeah, I'll do that. It's way better than getting up early. But I didn't know what I was signing up for because it was much more than a communications class. It was a history of Denver class. It was a history of the Colorado legislature class. It was a history, a walking tour of the cemeteries of Denver class. It was a poetry class. It was a calligraphy class. It was a class on Ignatian spirituality. It was a class on Jesuits and their impact on education. It was a mind-blowingly interesting class, and I never took anything like it again at Regis University. And I just didn't know what I was getting myself in for. While I was at Regis, I started taking an interest in politics, and we went to Senator Gallagher because we were interested in starting a College Democrats chapter at Regis University. And he became our official faculty advisor for the very first College Democrats chapter at Regis University. And he was very positive, encouraging. We would meet and he would give us tips on how to debate. And of course, we never actually got to talk though, because he talked the entire time. He did all the debating, both pro and con, and we just sat there and listened to him. Of course, he always started every debate and every class with a poem, usually from one of the greats. We would also talk about James Joyce and Gerard Manley Hopkins, and he would oftentimes recite this poetry with an Irish accent, and he would make sure to put the title and the author up on the board in the most beautiful calligraphy that you can imagine, and he would always start every class that way. And so you could usually count on not having to worry about assignments or homework for a good 25 minutes because we would just start off class with recitations. But it was a lovely way to begin class because it grounded you in beautiful things. And he really was very proud of his Irish ancestry and then his knowledge of Denver and his love for all things Jesuit. I just wanted to leave you with this two lines from a poem that he recited from memory, of course. I couldn't recite any of these things from memory, but he always did. And it's called God's Grandeur. It's a poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins, an Irish poet who became a Jesuit. And it says, "The world is charged with the grandeur of God. It will flame out like shining from shook foil. It gathers to a greatness like the ooze of oil crushed." And then it goes on to talk about how it will never go away, that God's grandeur is always there. And that's kind of how I feel about Dennis Gallagher, is that even though he's not here, he's still present, and he will always be there, just like God's grandeur inside of us. And I can always imagine him shining out like shook foil, because that's the kind of personality that he was.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to share just a couple of quick thoughts with you this morning as we memorialize an incredible public servant. Think about it for just a second. 1970 to 2015. 45 years of service to this state and to this city. That's pretty incredible. Obviously, with term limits, we're not going to see too many of those things get repeated here in Denver or anywhere else in Colorado. But what incredible dedication. And if each of us in this room as elected officials, whether we've been here for a few months or for a few years, take a moment and a deep breath to think about 45 years of that approach to service and that dedication. It's incredible, and I'm so glad today we get a chance to honor it and remember his incredible legacy. And also, what kind of person would want to go from the state capitol to the city hall? That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. The last thought I'll share with you is my most intense interaction with Senator Gallagher was in the debate about the repeal of the Gallagher Amendment. And I was one of the co-sponsors of the resolution that put that on the ballot and then became part of the campaign to the people of Colorado to make a change to our Constitution. And that was not an easy campaign. And perhaps the most unenviable part of that for me was having to debate Senator Gallagher on TV or on radio or in a public forum. And I was always nervous doing so. But the thing I remember so clearly is that there were some of those debates that got personal. I got called nasty things for being part of the effort to repeal the Gallagher Amendment. Personal attacks in some of those debates, but never from Senator Gallagher. Never. And it was named after him. It would have been pretty easy to take that personally, and he never did. And we each time had a very thorough debate about the pros and cons of should this remain in the Constitution, because that's what the debate was about. And I'll never forget that. Even the guy who it was named after never made a personal attack in those debates. And so today I join this chamber in honoring him, remembering his legacy, the 45 years of dedicated service to the state and to the city. And I'm so glad that I had a chance to get to know Senator Gallagher.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. When my kids were born, I kind of made it my goal to teach them what it meant to be Irish. And I read all of the books and passed on everything that I had, learned about it. And certainly living here in Denver, if you were Irish in Denver, you know who Senator Gallagher was. And you would see and hear about him. And I saw him many times before I actually got an opportunity to meet him. And the last time that I met him and spent some time with him, there was a Irish miners memorial that's being built up in Leadville. And I went on a bus trip up there for the opening. And it was the period, the 6 months before St. Patrick's Day was when they had it. So we were on the bus together, and there weren't very many people on the bus, which was kind of nice, and got opportunities to talk with. And as you will all attest to, as you just drove by places, he would shout out, what the significance of that building was, or what that plane was, or whatever was going on. And I remember when I first walked up to him and I went to introduce myself, he said, "Oh, yeah, I know who you are." And I was dumbfounded. I was just like, how does this guy know me? And we actually they have in Leadville on that 6 months before St. Patrick's Day, that's when they have their parade. Because history tells us that back in the day on St. Patrick's Day in Leadville, they would normally be under 20 or 30 inches of snow, and so they couldn't have the parade on St. Patrick's Day when everybody else did, so they would have it during the summer the 6 months before. So I actually got to walk down the half a block or whatever it was that it was with Senator Gallagher. And as we were going, I kind of lost track of him, and I don't know where he went. And then I finished up at the end of the parade, and there's, of course, a couple of pubs and drinking establishments along the way. And I walked into one of them, and there was the senator, and he was doing, and I'm sure you all know this certainly better than I do, he was kind of holding court. He was there, and there was a crowd of people around him, and I just thought, yeah, that's probably the way it should be. So thank you so much for, sharing him with me, and enjoy the rest of your great St. Patrick's Day.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Senate Rule 31A, I move that the Senate stand in recess for the purpose of allowing former members to address the body.
The Senate will now stand in a brief recess to allow former members of the House and Senate to address the body. Will the distinguished former members of this institution, if you'd like to say a few words, you're free to join us in the well. Senator Blickensderfer.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members of the body. I have seen many of you more often than I really want to as we lose many of our great leaders. I guess I should start off by stating the obvious, that everybody has a Dennis Gallagher story. He personified Denver and did it in such a graceful and, well, awfully humorous fashion in some respects. Whether he was hosting the very sought-after St. Patrick's Day party, or attending lunch at the Cactus Club with the likes of Tom Noel or Leah Boyle, he always enjoyed a good joke and a story. And during the reading of the resolution, there was mention of how he would revel in greeting visiting legislators, many from Eastern European countries, and would come down to the microphone and greet them supposedly in their native tongue. Well, we all kind of tested that once, and he was up greeting them in the back and then came down and gave his greeting at the microphone, and a few of us snuck down, and having talked to the legislators who were here, and we came to this microphone and said, "Senator, they don't know what you just said." Yeah, it was just sort of fun to pull that on him. And of course, you know how Dennis would take it. He just rolled over in laughter. But despite his very funny and somewhat raucous side, he served as the conscience of this body. I believe, and I know Tom Noel can confirm or deny this, I believe Dennis's parents, his father was a firefighter, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember our debating a variety of pieces of legislation related to the working men and women of this state. And Dennis would always come down to this microphone and remind us of the kinds of things that they would face, especially those in high-risk positions. And it was just so refreshing and so worthwhile to have that contribution to the debate. Dennis always had a heart-rending story. And of course, as has been mentioned already, who of us can claim to have a state constitutional amendment named after us? God bless you, Dennis Gallagher.
Senator Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the body. Benjamin Franklin said, "Don't wish so much to live long as to live well." And I think we can all agree that Senator Gallagher lived well. And of course, I had a speech prepared, and I thought, no. There's going to be plenty of people saying these wonderful things about Dennis, because there's, being a former senator, I can go on and on and on, but I won't. So I'll give you two very good personal observations that I had about Dennis. I was still in high school when Dennis was elected to the House, and one Christmas he came to our house, because we lived by Sloan's Lake at the time, and knocked on the door, and burst into Christmas carols in Latin, of all things. And he knew the words. And not the first phrase, but I think it was Adeste Fidelis. And my little brothers were just jumping up and down. They were so excited. They were maybe 7 and 8 at the time. But he wasn't dressed as Santa Claus. He looked like a bishop. And my little brother said, "Well, who are you?" And he said, "Well, I'm Saint Nick." And, you know, they knew. They were thinking Santa Claus at the time. And my parents were gone. But Dennis was going around the neighborhood. So when my parents came home, my little brothers are jumping up and down. You know, but there was this man was here. And they said, "Oh, you mean Dennis?" "Oh, no, it was a saint." "Well, how do you know?" "Because he told us he was a saint." And the other thing, what that says how good Dennis was with children and the positive impact that he would leave with young minds. And the other story that I want to tell you about is that you know how it is when you're walking around the chambers and you're going from committee room to committee room, and guess what happens? And there's just a whole bunch of little ones that are touring the building from this school or that school. So one time, Dennis and I were walking through the hallway. We were talking about a bill or something, and so Dennis and I stopped. And next thing I observed is this little tyke tugged at his pant legs and said, "Are you anybody important around here?" And Dennis said, "Well, it depends upon who you talk to." He said, "Well, my dad said I have to talk to somebody important." And so Dennis said, "Well, I'll give you my card." And so he started to sign it in, you know, his autograph and calligraphy. Well, as Dennis was signing this card, you could see all of these kids lined up. It was about 30 of them. They all wanted the same card. This teacher is just beside herself. And Dennis said, and I thought, well, Dennis is going to be late for committee, but he took the time. It isn't so much that he was on time for committee, but he took the time with all those young people. I bet you one or two of them still probably remember to this day meeting Senator Gallagher, because they have that card that he signed in his name. So I guess we can all agree that Dennis, you know, not only did he live long, but he lived well, and he was good with children. Thank you.
Senator Sandoval.
I have a soft voice. Oh, that came out loud. So Dennis Gallagher, what a wonderful memorial for him. You heard his titles: state representative, state senator, city councilman, city auditor. But he was also a teacher, professor, tour guide, statesman, thespian, historian, author, newspaper columnist, calligrapher, and most recently, podcaster, and also star of a documentary. But the best roles of all were a son, brother, brother-in-law, cousin, uncle, husband, father, neighbor, and friend. The last of which he was a friend to many, and many were blessed to call him a friend. It was said that he was a true Renaissance man, and I've heard that term thrown around quite a bit lately, but I really think Dennis fit the definition, as he was proficient in so many areas. He often quoted Shakespeare, as was mentioned before, and his favorite author, James Joyce. He recited phrases in Latin and then, of course, translated them for you. He has also been described as the consummate public servant. He certainly had that prerequisite that everybody in public life should possess, and that is he liked and cared about people. He cared about his community, his city, his state. He was ardent and passionate about causes he cared about, especially the Gallagher Amendment, and not because it bore his name, but because it allowed citizens, in particular seniors, whose biggest asset is most certainly the home they owned. It allowed them to be able to stay in their home and not be forced out because of exorbitant taxes. Dennis Gallagher's heart was in the right place on that one. Dennis Gallagher was a champion of the people, and he used his status and influence that he acquired over the years, his platform in today's speak, to advocate for those whose voice would not otherwise be heard. One thing, on a personal note, that I remember about Dennis at my restaurant, the man could eat hot chili. And sometimes the person that you least expect to be able to eat hot chili is the one that can stand it the best, and others, if you expect to eat hot chili, they're real wusses about it. Well, Dennis was in that category, although once in a while I did detect a bead of sweat coming down the side of his forehead. Dennis was a friend to so many. You know, the day before his funeral, I was invited to an old-fashioned Irish wake at Dennis's house, and I really did not know what to expect. And my first hint should have been when I couldn't find parking, but I always envisioned that it would be this small group of people, and we would sit around in a circle, and we would tell stories about Dennis. But when I got there, it was like standing room only. It was filled with people. There was a table laden with food and drink, and of course there were Irish dishes there, and I imagine that they were Dennis's favorite dishes. There was a live Irish chamber music, and a good time was had by all. And yes, we reminisced about Dennis Gallagher, but we also celebrated a life well lived. Another thing about Dennis's house, he had this door that he had imported from Ireland. And while some people have a housewarming, Dennis had a door warming. And he invited folks over to breakfast to celebrate his new door. He had a priest from Regis bless the door, not his house, but the door. And I can see why, because it really was a nice door. Dennis's premier event for constituents and friends was his annual St. Patrick's Day celebration. And if you were a politician, you did not dare miss that event, as it was very well attended, and Dennis was sure to introduce you to the crowd. Even if he wasn't supporting you, he graciously let you speak at that event. It allowed all of us to be Irish for a day, eating corned beef and cabbage, those of us that aren't vegetarians. And speaking of the political scene, if Dennis decided to support you for whatever office that you were running for, he was all in. He would handwrite in that beautiful calligraphy of his postcards to everyone he knew to ask them to support your candidacy. Dennis left behind scores of friends and family, friends too numerous to call out lest I slight someone in leaving them out. Besides his other extended family, he left behind his brother Tim and Tim's wife Sherry, his former wife Joanne, his son Danny, whom he loved unconditionally. However, sadly, his beloved daughter Megan preceded him in death. One day, it was just about a year ago, a weary Dennis Gallagher lay down to take a nap, and he never woke up. And in the words of his favorite author, James Joyce, his soul swooned softly as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe, and faintly falling like the descent of their last end upon all the living and the dead. Dennis Gallagher spent a good portion of his adult life here in this chamber and in these hallowed halls of the state capitol. On behalf of his family and friends, thank you for honoring him today.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Many people have said many things about Dennis Gallagher, and the most remarkable thing I can say is they're all true. Dennis never knew a stranger. But the most remarkable thing is people who knew Dennis always knew Dennis. When I met him, I was a young man, and he came to my neighborhood, Northeast Denver, at the invitation of Wilma Webb, Wellington Webb, Regis Groff, Gloria Tanner, and a host of other people. And I'm like, who is this guy? And they're like, well, he's Mr. Northside. That's kind of how they introduced him. And I got to meet him and came up and introduced myself, and he said, I know your dad. And he said, I'm Dennis. He didn't preface it with a title. He didn't talk about what position he held or had held. He just said, I'm Dennis. And that's what I remember most about him. He was a person who as you've heard, accomplished so much, did so many things, served our community in so many ways, but fundamentally, at the end of the day, he was Dennis, and that's how people knew him. In addition to everything you've heard, what I remember most about Dennis is that he was a sharing man. He gave a lot, and a lot of what he gave was advice. And I was the beneficiary of it on 2 occasions I'll never forget. I had the opportunity to serve on Governor Romer's cabinet, and on one occasion I appeared before the audit committee, and Dennis was on the committee, and it was a contentious situation because the auditor was upset that I had done some things in running my department that the auditor didn't agree with. And I was trying to explain to the committee why it was okay that I disagreed with the auditor and everything was going to be all right. And Dennis, when he had an opportunity, spoke and said, "Mr. Tate, that's all right, because 'tis better to ask for forgiveness than permission." I never forgot that. And he was right. The second piece of advice he gave me, and the one I really took to heart, was when I had the privilege of being elected by the folks in District 8 to serve in the House, in House District 8, I had a chance to visit with Dennis. And he was one of the people I went to for advice, and I said, okay, what do I need to know going into this deal? And he said, you've got to remember 3 things. Always represent and vote your district and your constituents, number 1. Number 2, always respect your values and your principles. And number 3, never surprise leadership. And I always took that to heart. We're in an era where I sometimes worry that we don't see enough statesmen and stateswomen rising to the level of a Dennis Gallagher. We sometimes have lost the ability to disagree without being disagreeable. Dennis showed us that you have to do that. It's just a bill. You win some, you lose some, you move on to the next one. But what matters most is what's in the best interest of the people you represent, and in these chambers, it's the people of the state of Colorado. Danny, I will miss your dad. He was a wonderful guy. He was a mentor. He was a friend. And he was really a state treasure. And thank you for the time you and the family let him spend serving with and working with all of us. Thank you.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Friends, that's how Dennis Gallagher would start every speech he would give, whether it was in front of a church, a spaghetti dinner, or the state senate. That was part of the full phrase was friends, Romans, countrymen. And it just, you knew the moment he said that something great was going to be said, something funny was going to be said. You stood up in attention. And he had this marvelous gift of 2 things. No matter what crowd he was in front of, he could grab your attention. You would stop what you were doing and listen. And then, when the speech was over and it was time to walk out or move on to the next thing, he would come to you if he went to you, and he would make you feel like you were the most important person on the planet. He did those 2 things so well all the time. And as a young man in North Denver, learning about the world, learning about politics, learning about how to be a good public servant, man, those were big shoes that you had to fill if you were ever going to be a North Denver public servant. Senator Gonzalez, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All of us, we know that those were big shoes to fill. And he was a marvelous mentor. And what's so gratifying about being here today with our old North Denver crew and those who've been part of our North Denver crew is his advice and his challenge never changed over the generations. The same things he told Senator Tate was what he told me when I thought about running for office. He didn't care about the policies that I was going to run. He didn't care about the political views as long as I was a Democrat. He said, make sure you always vote your district, stand with your constituents, and no matter what happens in that chamber, no matter what happens in your district, never, ever forget where you came from. Always be humble. Always be kind. Always listen to all opinions, Democrat, Republican, rich, poor, anyone from anywhere, because they've always got something to offer you. I'll just tell you one quick political story. I don't know if it's appropriate for the Senate, but it would have been in the House. So North Denver, if you know North Denver, you love North Denver. And you know that it's an anchor in the city and always has been, in large part because of Dennis Gallagher. But from time to time, there'd be other factions inside of North Denver who would run against each other, run candidates against each other, to settle scores, to set differences, to do all the things that North Denver was always famous for. And you always wanted to be sure that if you were on one side, and sometimes Senator Gallagher was on one side and there was a whole bunch of folks on the other side, that the one side didn't know that you were talking to the other side. And as a young man getting ready to run for office, we had a couple of different sides in North Denver at the time. There was the Dennis Gallagher side, and there was the Don Mates side. And never the two shall meet. And if you know anything about that history, you know that that was a long history. But when I was running for office, and I went to Senator Gallagher, and by the way, it wasn't just Senator Gallagher, it was Gary Sully and Dennis Bergfeld and Clay Vigoda and the whole crew. And that was a very scary breakfast to be with all of those very influential people. And I think we've all done that if we've ever run for office in Denver. And asked for Senator Gallagher's support. And I reminded him that we had a lot in common, which we didn't really at all. I mean, he was a giant. I'm this, little Hispanic kid trying to run for office in North Denver. But I said, one of the things we have is we both went to Holy Family High School. We were both graduates of Holy Family. And the same values that you learned about the community, I learned. And, with that and a few promises I hope that I kept, I got his support. And then I went to the other side and said similar things and had similar connections. Don Mates didn't go to Holy Family, he went to Regis. And I asked him for his support, and he said yes. And so in the middle of a very hotly contested primary, I asked both of them, would you be willing to put your names side by side on an email for me, endorsing me for State House? And they both said, we're bearing the hatchet. We've never agreed on anything in 20 years. We're agreeing on you as the candidate for State House. And it was one of the most honorable moments that I've ever had to see two giants in this area lend their support to the next generation, because they believed that mentorship and the next generation was more important than the battles of the past. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that time, because again, literally, they had not agreed on anything for years until that time. The one thing that I will always remember about Senator Gallagher was when he was auditor, and you may have received one of these cards, he would hand you his card. and he'd say, "Let me know if you see anything suspicious out there. I'll follow up on it." And he did, and he followed up, and he audited that city to the disbelief of the mayor and every council member in the city. He protected the people. He protected the institutions. He protected the world that we lived in because he cared so much. And so I'll end by just saying, Senator Gallagher, Auditor Gallagher, Councilman Gallagher, Representative Gallagher, you always said, leave the city, the state, the country better than you found it. And I will say, Godspeed, Senator Gallagher. You left the world better than you found it.
Thank you to the former members and distinguished and honorable folks who serve this institution and come back and speak those kind words about Dennis Gallagher. And also thank you, Dan Pabon, for coming too. The Senate will come back to order. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I said earlier that Dennis Gallagher was an institution and that they don't make them anymore like him. But may we all try. And may we all do our best to live a life and to do the work on behalf of the people in the way that he taught us how to do. Thank you, Mr. President. I renew my motion for the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 3, and I request a roll call vote.
The motion is the adoption of Senate Joint Memorial 3. Will the clerk please poll the members?
Senators Baisley. Baisley, aye. Bridges. Bridges, aye. Buckner. Buckner, aye. Coleman. Coleman, aye. Cutter. Cutter, aye. Danielson. Danielson, aye. Exum. Exum, aye. Fields. Fields, aye. Gardner. Gardner, aye. Janal. Janal, aye. Gonzalez. Gonzalez, aye. Hanson. Hanson, aye. Hinrichsen. Hinrichsen, aye. Jaquez Lewis. Jaquez Lewis, aye. Kirkmeyer. Kirkmeyer, aye. Kolker. Kolker, aye. Liston. Liston, aye. Lundin. Lundin, aye. Marchman excused. Moreno. Moreno, aye. Mullica. Mullica, aye. Pelton B. Pelton B, aye. Pelton R. Pelton R, aye. Priola. Priola, aye. Rich. Rich, aye. Roberts. Roberts, aye. Rodriguez. Rodriguez, aye. Simpson. Simpson, aye. Smallwood. Smallwood, aye. Sullivan. Sullivan, aye. Van Winkle. Van Winkle, aye. Will. Will, aye. Winter. Winter, aye. Zenzinger. Zenzinger, aye. Blickensderfer. Blickensderfer, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Sandoval. Sandoval, aye. Tate. Tate, aye. Mr. President. President, aye.
With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, Senate Joint Memorial 3 is adopted. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors. The Senate will now observe a moment of silence in memory of Senator Gallagher. Thank you to all the guests, the family, friends who joined us today to honor the life and legend of Dennis Gallagher. The Senate will now stand in a brief recess to greet our guests. The Senate will come back to order. Third reading of bills. No one's here. Consent calendar. Will the clerk please read the titles to all of the bills on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1137, Representatives Lukens and Valdez, Senators Hansen and Roberts, concerning measures to stabilize net metering credits calculated for an electric retail utilities purchase of electric output from a community solar garden. House Bill 1156, Representatives Taggart and Young, Senators Kolker and Pelton R., concerning modernization of the Public Airport Authority Act. House Bill 1172, Representative Parenti and Senator Hawkes Lewis, concerning changes to child welfare proceedings.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the bills on the third reading consent calendar, which includes House Bills 1137, 1156, and 1172.
Is there any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing no discussion, the motion is the passage of all the bills on the third reading of bills consent calendar. Are there any no votes? Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request to be a no vote on House Bill 1137.
Senator Pelton R. will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1137. Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1137.
Senator Van Winkle will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1137. Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1137 and House Bill 1172.
Senator Baisley will be recorded as a no vote on House Bills 1137 and 1172.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Minority Leader Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I request to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1137 and House Bill 1172.
Minority Leader will be recorded as a no vote on House Bills 1137 and 1172. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, request to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1137 and 1172.
Senator Gardner will be recorded as a no vote on House Bills 1137 and 1172. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1137 and House Bill 1172.
Senator Smallwood will be recorded as a no vote on House Bills 1137 and 1172. Senator Liston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wish to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1172 and 1137.
Senator Liston will be recorded as a no vote on House Bills 1137 and 1172. Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on 1137.
That bill's about puppies and rainbows, though. Senator Will, you sure you want to be a no on that
1172 and 1137.
Senator Will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1137. Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to record as a no vote on 1172.
Senator Kirkmeyer will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1172. Senator Rich.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1172.
Senator Rich will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1172. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1172.
Senator Pelton will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1172, and that's Pelton with a B. Senator Van Winkle.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also, in addition to 1137, like to be recorded as no vote on 1172.
Senator Van Winkle will be recorded as a no vote on 1172. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to add to be a no vote on 1172.
Senator Pelton R. will be recorded as a no vote on House Bill 1172. With a vote of 26 ayes, 8 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1137 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Mullica, Exum, Majority Leader Moreno, Priola, Gonzalez, Cutter, Winter, Hawkes Lewis, Buckner. Please add the president. With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, House Bill 1156 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Simpson, Roberts. Smallwood, Pelton B, Priola, Winter, Exum, with a vote of 24 ayes, 10 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1172 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Winter, Majority Leader Moreno, Cutter, Hendrickson, Buckner, Senator Cutter, I got you. Co-sponsors on 1172. Exum, Danielson, third reading of bills, final passage. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1001?
House Bill 1001, Representatives Kipp and McLaughlin, Senator Zenzinger, concerning expanding financial assistance for educator programs.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1001 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of House Bill 1001. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Baisley, Pelton B, Pelton R. With a vote of 30 ayes, 4 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1001 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Roberts, Mullica, Exum, Janal, Majority Leader Moreno, Rodriguez. You're also a Robert. Kolker, Hanson, Bridges, Hendrickson, Sullivan, Priola, Cutter, Buckner, Winter, Jaquez Lewis, Danielson, Fields, Coleman, Gonzalez. Please add the president. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1037?
House Bill 1037, Representatives Martinez and Pugliese, Senator Gonzalez, concerning awarding earned time to nonviolent offenders who complete an accredited higher education program.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1037 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of House Bill 1037. Are there any no votes? Senators Baisley, Van Winkle, Gardner, Liston, Kirkmeyer, Minority Leader Lundin, Smallwood. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to be recorded as an aye vote on 1037.
Senator Gardner will be recorded as an aye vote on House Bill 1037. With a vote of 28 ayes, 6 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1037 is passed. Co-sponsors: Senators Simpson, Exum, Kolker, Majority Leader Moreno, Hendrickson, Rodriguez, Hanson, Pelton R, Priola, Cutter, Winter, Buckner, Jaquez Lewis, Coleman, Danielson. Please add the president. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1030?
House Bill 1030, Representative Serrata and Soper, Senator Hinrichsen, concerning a prohibition against requiring compensation to a healthcare staffing agency if a contracted healthcare facility hires the healthcare staffing agency's employee as a permanent employee of the healthcare facility.
Senator Hinrichsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1030 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of House Bill 1030. Are there any no votes? Senators Simpson, Pelton R, Pelton B, Baisley, Rich, Kirkmeyer, Van Winkle, Minority Leader Lundin, Smallwood, Buckner, with a vote of 24 ayes, 10 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1030 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senators Rodriguez, Janal, Zenzinger, Cutter, Winter, Majority Leader Moreno, Kolker. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over Senate Bill 53 to Tuesday, March 21st.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 53 until Tuesday, March 21st. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 53 will be laid over until March 21st. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 109 and House Bill 1126 lay over until Monday, March 20th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 109 and House Bill 1126 until Monday, March 20th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no? No. Sorry, the ayes have it. Those two bills will be laid over until Monday, March 20th. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up the following bills on special orders, second reading consent calendar at the hour of 10:42 a.m. Senate Bill 18 and Senate Bill 165.
The motion is that the Senate take up Senate Bill 18 and Senate Bill 165 on special orders consent at the hour of 10:42 a.m. This does require a 2/3 majority. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. The Senate will take up Senate Bill 18 and Senate Bill 165 on special orders consent at the hour of 10:42 a.m. Special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve at 7 to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the special order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Cutter will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all the bills on the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
Senate Bill 18, Senator Fields, Representative Amabile, concerning ongoing funding for the Colorado 911 Resource Center. Senate Bill 165, Senator Sullivan, Representative Ricks, concerning the continuation of the regulation of racing and in connection therewith continuing the division of racing events in the Department of Revenue, continuing the activities of the Colorado Racing Commission and implementing recommendations contained in the 2022 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the special orders second reading consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes Senate Bill 18 and Senate Bill 165 and the associated Finance Committee report.
Is there any discussion on the committee reports? The motion before the body is the adoption of all committee reports on the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion of any of the bills on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Marino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bills 18 and Senate Bill 165 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 18, Senate Bill 165 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up Senate Bill 6 and 182 on special orders, second reading of bills at the hour of 10:46 a.m.
The motion is that the Senate take up Senate Bills 6 and 182 on special orders at the hour of 10:46 a.m. This does require a two-thirds majority. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. The Senate will take up Senate Bill 6 and Senate Bill 182 on special orders at the hour of 10:46 a.m. Special order, second reading of bills. Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for the consideration of special orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for the consideration of the special orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Cutter will take the chair.
Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 2306? Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops. The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Thank you. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 006?
Senate Bill 6, Senators Roberts and Rich, Representatives McLaughlin and Catlin, concerning the creation of the Rural Opportunity Office in the Office of Economic Development.
Senator Roberts. Senator Dillon.
Senator Dillon's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 6, the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee report, and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the Appropriations report. Or to the Business and Labor report, apologies. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Business, Labor, Technology Committee, we added a few amendments, one of which being that the people who work for the Rural Opportunity Office actually need to live in rural Colorado. This is a good amendment, in my opinion, and made a few other technical changes. Asked for an aye vote on the committee report.
Is there any discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion is adoption of the Business and Labor Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. to the appropriations report. Senator Ridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This morning, we were in appropriations, and we were appropriated the funds for the Rural Opportunity Office. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion is adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The report is adopted. Oh, there is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L002?
Amendment L002 by Senator Roberts, amend printed bill, page 5, strike lines 3 and 4, and substitute subparagraph B, work with the coal transitioning communities 2, page 5, line 14, strike nonprofits and substitute nonprofits.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L002.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. L002 strikes some language in the bill that the bill originally said at the discretion of the director, the office should work with coal transitioning communities. We're removing the words at the discretion so that we ensure that they work with coal transitioning communities. And then one very minor technical change from the drafter. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L002. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. To the bill, Senator Ridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's an honor to be here for Senate Bill 23006 with my colleague from Avon, the senator from Avon, sorry. Senate Bill 23006. It codifies the Rural Opportunity Office, which was created in 2019 in the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. And during that time, or let me just tell you how successful this has been, this program served 6,000 businesses and stakeholders over a 6-month period. The following are a few current rural programs: the Colorado Rural Resiliency and Recovery Roadmaps, the Rural Technical Assistance Program, the Rural Data Dashboard, Location Neutral Employment Community Matching Grant. This has been really successful for rural Colorado, and I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the good senator from Grand Junction. It's an honor to be on this bill with you. The senator from Grand Junction and I have worked on other bills to help rural Colorado in the past. When we were in the House, we led a bill that expanded the Rural Jumpstart program, and then the senator listed a few other programs that have been put in place to help our rural communities with a variety of things: economic transitions, economic development, responding to the pandemic, and a variety of other things. What the goal of the Rural Opportunity Office and why it's important to codify it is that our small communities don't have grant writers on staff. They don't have a lot of technical assistance, and this office has been, and if we codify it, will continue to be a one-stop shop for small communities to get the help that they need with their economic development needs. It has vast support from across the state, chambers of commerce to Conservation Colorado and everybody in between, because we know that if we can pool all of these assistance programs together from both the state level but also federal assistance programs, nonprofit, private sector, that we can really help rural Colorado thrive. And with that, I'd ask for an aye vote to codify the Rural Opportunity Office.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 006. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. All right, will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 23182?
Senate Bill 182, Senators Zenzinger and Kirkmeyer, Representative Burke, concerning the temporary suspension of certain statutory requirements for medical assistance programs.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 23182 and the appropriations report.
To the report, to the appropriations. Oh, excuse me.
No committee report. We were the committee of reference. There was no report.
Oh. There is no committee report. We were the committee of reference.
To the bill.
To the bill.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this actually was voted on unanimously and put on consent in the Appropriations Committee, but we discovered that there was a technical amendment that we needed to make, so I'm going to pause right now in order to do that.
Okay, there's an amendment at the desk. Can the clerk please read L002?
Amendment L002 by Senator Zenzinger.
Senator
amend printed-
Zenzinger. Senator Zenzinger.
Members, I move Amendment L002. We had a date that was incorrect, so we are striking 2004 and substituting 2023 on page 4, line 22.
Is there any discussion? The motion is the adoption of Amendment L002. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted to the bill. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you. Members, Senate Bill 182 is a temporary suspension of Medicaid requirements. It protects the state from future clawbacks in our enhanced federal matching funds by aligning our state statutes with federal guidance as the state returns to normal with regard to our renewal processes following the end of the continuous coverage requirement in the public health emergency. This is a technical bill that will sunset after the state takes this next year, as allowed by the federal government, to return to normal operations in a measured way, and we ask for your aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 182. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 6 is amended. Senate Bill 182 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered, engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 6 is amended. Senate Bill 182 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Will the clerk please mark Senator Van Winkle as excused? Consideration of House amendments. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 37?
Senate Bill 37 by Senator Cutter and Representative Judah and Bradfield concerning requirements for solicitations related to the Secretary of State.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 37.
Senator Cutter, will you please explain yourself? We thought you were loyal to this chamber.
It's just, I know, I'm so ashamed. It's just a small technical fix, pretty easy, and so unfortunately they caught something, so we'll give them credit, and I ask you to concur today.
Is there any discussion? The motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 37. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 37.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 37. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, Senate Bill 37 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Consideration of governor's appointments, consent calendar. Will the clerk please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Members of the Natural Medicine Advisory Board for terms expiring January 31st, 2025. William Dunn, NRP, FPC of Avon, Colorado, to serve as a representative of emergency medical services and services provided by first responders, appointed. Billy Wynn, JD of Greenwood Village, Colorado, to serve as a representative of healthcare insurance and healthcare policy and public health drug policy and harm reduction, appointed. Sophia Chavez, PhD of Lakewood, Colorado, to serve as a representative of traditional and indigenous use and religious use of natural medicine, appointed. Bradley Connor, PhD of Fort Collins, Colorado, to serve as a representative of natural medicine therapy, medicine, and research in public health, drug policy, and harm reduction, appointed. Wendy Buxton Andrade of Lamar, Colorado, to serve as a representative of levels and disparities in access to healthcare services among different communities, appointed. Skippy Upton Mesereau of Aspen, Colorado, to serve as a representative of permitted organization criteria, appointed. Ernestine Gonzalez, PhD, MAMS of Colorado Springs, Colorado, to serve as a representative of healthcare insurance and healthcare policy, past criminal justice reform efforts in Colorado, and disparities in access to healthcare services among different communities, appointed. For terms expiring January 31st, 2027, Heather Lundy Nelson, MA of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative of mental health and behavioral health providers and disparities in access to healthcare services among different communities, appointed. Dr. Suzanne Sisley of Scottsdale, Arizona, to serve as a representative of mycology, natural medicine cultivation, appointed. Katina Banks, JD of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative of permitted organization criteria, appointed. Ricardo Baca of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative of traditional indigenous use in public health drug policy and harm reduction, appointed. Dr. Alyssa Hannum, to serve as a representative of mental and behavioral health providers and issues confronting veterans, appointed. Clarissa Pincola Estes, PhD of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a representative of traditional indigenous use and religious use, appointed. Joshua Goodman, PhD of Aurora, Colorado, to serve as a representative of issues confronting veterans, appointed. Sheriff David Lucero of Pueblo, Colorado, to serve as a representative of past criminal justice reform in Colorado, appointed.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments listed on the consent calendar, which includes members of the Natural Medicine Advisory Board.
Is there any discussion? The motion is the confirmation of all of the appointments on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 2 excused, the appointments are confirmed. Announcements. Announcements. Senator Priola.
Morning, Mr. President, members. A bunch of folks from Greeley will be here Monday morning, and there will be a breakfast in 271 at 8 a.m., so please show up and say hi.
Just random people from Greeley? All right. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will pay my fine in advance, and I just wanted to wish my son in Arizona a happy 48th birthday, Joaquin Q. Thank you.
Senator Exum, you will not be fined for that.
Thank you.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Today's the 556th Friday since my son Alex was murdered in the Aurora Theater massacre. Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan said, "To fail to understand that life is going to knock you down is to fail to understand the Irishness of life." Clearly, I am living that full Irish life. Every St. Patrick's Day, I remember the time I was waiting in Shabeens for Alex to show up so we could celebrate the day together. When he came through the door, he was dressed as a leprechaun, a 6'4", 250-pound leprechaun. I struggle with that memory because I can't fully see it anymore. You see, I didn't take a picture that day. I didn't know I was supposed to. I always thought that there was going to be more time, and there wasn't. So today, when I raise the glass without him, I look forward to that day when I get to see that 6'4" leprechaun again. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further announcements. Minority Leader Lundin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we are all Irish. That's the great tradition of St. Patrick's Day. I'm a little bit more than 32% Irish. So I will conclude our session today, prior to the President's actual conclusion, with a blessing that is a traditional Irish blessing that I would offer upon all of you. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm on your face and the rain fall soft on your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Seeing no further announcements, I move that the Senate recess until 12 p.m. today. Colleagues, you do not need to return. We're simply reading bills across the desk.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will recess until 12 noon today.